Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Finally getting a chance to create with some of the My Favorite Things wine themed shaker goodies that were released in December. So I wanted to create a card and a wine tag while I was at it. So I actually started with the Snowfall background stamp. This was released last year, I think, at some point. And I'm using it upside down because it's usually the area at the bottom there is usually where it starts at the top, more concentrated snowflakes, and then it lightens up as it gets to the bottom of your card. So I used it upside down and I stamped it onto just a panel of white cardstock that I had already die cut with one of the A2 stitch rectangle STAX set 2 Die-Namics dies. So I used my anti-static powder tool first. I had inked up the stamp with some clear embossing ink, and then I'm using clear embossing powder. So of course it looks like nothing right now. When you tilt it in the light, you can see everything. But the whole idea of this was I like this stamp because it looks like bubbles when you use it upside down. So I kind of thought, like almost like fizz, champagne, etc. So after I had heat embossed it, I just used my little craft mat here and some dye ink and a Picket fence blending brush. And I am blending the color starting at the bottom of the panel and then just lightening the pressure and the ink all the way up to the top. So I have just that deeper concentration of color towards the bottom and then just lighter at the top. So once I was happy with how that was all blended, I'm going to start actually making the shaker elements. So I'm using the wine glass shaker, window, and frames Die-Namics that I don't know what it is about these drink themed ones. I think it's just so fun to be able to create these fun little shaker cards with all of these little elements. So I have both of the outlines of the wine glasses die cut here, and then I'm just using a pencil to kind of trace where I'm going to place these on the card, just to trace the inner portion, because the die comes with that separate little window die cut as well. So having the pencil outlines shows me where I can place that little window die so I can die cut this right from the panel. I've shown in other videos where I actually turn the drink glasses into their own standalone shakers before adhering them to the card. So I'll link to those at the end of this video, which that's, another option anyway. But this time I decided to use the window because it would just be easier. Plus because I was layering 2 of them together. So after I die cut those 2 windows, I have the little wine glass shaker pouches. So I just used multimedia matte adhesive and applied it to the back and then popped those pouches into place. And then with that multimedia matte, they're just adhered. Kind of holds everything a little bit better to have them adhered into place. And normally I prefer, and I've said this I think a million times, every time I make a shaker card, I do prefer a dry adhesive, like a tape runner or score tape. Score tape's my go-to. But when I'm working with little curved edges like this and everything, it's faster to work with the multimedia matte adhesive. But working with the liquid adhesive gets a little finicky. But multimedia matte does adhere to plastic, so that's another reason why I use it. Because once it's adhered, it's good to go. So I've got both my pouches adhered, and then I gotta fill them with the shaker elements. So I use kind of a mixture, create my own cocktail as it were, or create my own wine mix, whatever. I'm using some Pretty Pink Posh. I used some 3mm sparkling clear, some 4mm ballerina pink sequins, and then I added a few rose pink seed beads just because those really give it that shaker sound. So once I was happy with that, and I filled them rather liberally. These pouches actually hold a lot more than you'd think. Even these little smaller ones. So I just used my little Tonic spoon to spoon those in. And then I applied the multimedia matte around the plastic lip of the shaker as well as the perimeter. And then I just had a piece of white cardstock that I cut to smaller than the card front there. And I backed all that with that cardstock, making sure not to really move it around because I don't want to smear that adhesive or get it, on the back of anything. So once I got that, I can flip it over and then I can adhere these wine glasses into place. And this is always my favorite part because it's once you actually start getting everything to come together, flip it over and it's okay, this is working. The idea in my head is coming together. These look adorable. This is just fun. So I die cut both of those outlines just from the same heavyweight white cardstock and then just again adhere them into place with my multimedia matte because it's out and open and convenient. So apply a thin amount of that adhesive just down the center of it and then adhere those into place. So once I've got those adhered, I can add my sentiment. And I have the MONDO Cheers Die-Namics that I die cut from 2 pieces of white cardstock and then 1 piece of Tonic mirror cardstock. This is the gold pearl cardstock, so it's not super shiny and reflective. It's that more satin finish, which I love. I love the shiny. I love the satin. It just depends on my mood. But for this, I really like this more kind of satin finish. It's just so pretty. So I stacked all those together. So I've got the 2 layers of white and then the gold on top just to give it, you know, that nice depth. And then adhered that to my card front. And then for my card base, I have more of the same heavyweight white cardstock, cut to 4 1/4 and 11, scored at 5 1/2. So this will be a top folding A2 size card. And I have a sentiment from the Good Time to Wine stamp set. And I am inking that up. I put it in my stamp platform. I inked up the stamp with the same clear embossing ink. I'm going to heat emboss it with the same clear embossing powder. So again, it looks like nothing. Just clear on white. But there's a method to the madness. So after I had stamped it, coated with the clear embossing powder, melted that with my heat tool. And especially when I'm doing white on white or clear on white, which is almost all the time, I always just tilt it in the light to make sure it's all smooth and shiny. There's no grainy areas so that it's all melted, you know, so I don't have to worry about it. And then I just pulled out that same ink and my little blending brush and blended that over. I thought it would kind of be nice to tie it all in from the front to the inside. So this time though, I'm just pulling it up partially. I'm not going to, you know, cover the whole inside of the card with this ink. I just wanted it to cover the sentiment enough so that it could be easily read. So blended that, and then I'm going to use my tape runner to adhere this shaker front to the card. And that's going to finish off the card, but of course, I can't do just a card. You need the wine tag as well because it all just goes together so seamlessly. So I adhered the card front, that finished the card. For the wine tag, I used MFT's Wine Tag Die-Namics. This again was released, I think, a couple years ago. It's still available. Everything, as always, will be linked in the description box below the video as well as on my blog. But yeah, I die cut more white cardstock with the wine tag. And I used my memo tape just to mask off the top portion. There's a little score line right there. And I want to mask off the top portion so I don't get any of the stamping or ink or anything on it. So I did the exact same thing with this. So I'm just going to kind of speed through it because I basically followed the exact same procedure for the tag as I did for the card. So I'm going to stamp that Snowfall background upside down on the tag, clear heat emboss it with the clear embossing powder. Going to blend that same ink onto it in the exact same way with the darkest at the bottom, fading it up towards the top of the wine tag, not card. And then I'm going to do the same thing, use the little wine glass shaker window and frame dynamics, cut the window, add the little pouch to that, and adhere it into place with the multimedia matte adhesive, add the same sequins and seed beads to that for my shaker. Since this is a wine tag and it's not getting like adhered to anything, I cut down a piece of white cardstock, nice and clean with my paper cutter to just kind of smaller than the wine tag to adhere to the back of this to keep it, you know, clean. It's not jagged, you know, I didn't slice it with my scissors or anything. And I also did it like that because then it gives a nice clean back to the wine tag, because if you ever wanted to like fill it out, you know, write something to the recipient, if you weren't going to add a card to it, but it just made it look a lot nicer than, you know, just slapping a random scrap like I usually do, because if I'm going to sandwich pieces in between other pieces, you're not going to see it, but with this you can. So I adhered that. So now again, I've got my little shaker element. I can adhere my wine glass. For this one, I'm using the regular Cheers dynamic that came out with this wine tag, again, a year or two ago. This one's about half the size of the one I used on the card. So just personal preference, which one you got. But when I went through my stash, I was like, oh, I have both. So I'm going to use both. But yeah, this one's smaller. The other one is much larger. You'll see that you can see them in the like final pictures. But I did the exact same thing, stacked a couple layers of that, added the gold to the top, and that finished off the tag. So now I'm just going to fold it on that little score line and then just kind of reinforce it with my Teflon bone folder there and smooth it out. And then I've got my awesome little wine tag and card and a literally coordinating bottle of wine. I did the colors to kind of match this bottle of wine. So that finished off the card and tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I mentioned, I have a link to my blog post in the description box below the video, as well as a supply list with all the links. You can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. And I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye!